Good morning and welcome. At least it's morning for me right now. I hope you're going to have a wonderful day. I'm really planning on it myself. I've got lots of projects on my desk here to work on, but I have one that's completed that I really want to show you the finished part here. This is the Down the Rabbit Hole with Lynda project, where we started from nothing and we created a flower, layer by layer by layer by layer. And I wanted to show the process I use to create a lot of my fiber art. When I don't know from the beginning where I'm going, I know I wanted to make a flower, but I didn't know. I had no idea that this is what I would end up with. And I call that, working by the seat of your pants. That's a phrase that's often meant that you just work in the moment. You do whatever intuitively you feel like you need to do at that moment. It's not planned out in advance. I really like the piece. I really like the way it came together. I love the colors of it. I love the softness of it. It's just beautiful. And it worked so well. I was a little worried in the beginning because I chose such a busy batik background, in a sense that it just lines going everywhere, and I stayed in a lot of the same color tones as the background. So I was a little bit worried whether I would be able to layer that up enough dimensionally to pull that flower away from that background and yet keep it very subtly coordinated with the background. So I think I was able to do that. At least I'm pleased with it. The last one I showed, I did not have the center in, and I did not have these additional pieces herein. I did not have this thread work down through herein. So I simply sewed the rest of the layered petals that I had. Finished sewing on the leaves. Each leaf is sewed somewhat differently. Two of them are outlined, and they all have a chain stitch down the center, but a little bit different. Some have other threads running down the center of the chain stitch and some don't. I've often said if you're going to repeat elements, that's great, but change them up a little. Don't do exactly the same thing. For instance, we have 6 layered petals here, but none of them are exactly the same. We have leaves here, but none of them are exactly the same. Their shape is a little sized differently. The threads used, colors are differently. For instance, a couple are outlined and one isn't. I will outline something in each simply to help the eye pull it together and define it as for what it is. Okay. When I put all the petals in there and then put my centerpiece down to see what it looked like, it appeared that it was too gappy between the individual petals for me. So that's when I decided to go in and put in these cream colored pieces here around, and that filled in, but they also were able to pull in the color of the leaves very well. And so that added to the softness and the coordination of the whole piece. Then I came down and added some threads along that cut line on that piece of fabric, that black and white piece of fabric right there. So that finished what I wanted here. This was not a focal point. This was something, just stem, vase, whatever you want to call it, just something to visually hold up this flower. Okay. Now let's go down and take a closer look at some of the elements here. This is just thread, just leftover wadded threads. I pulled out some with color, and then there were some just cream colored in there. And you can see the stitching that I did on these leaves. This fabric was a sheer fabric, but it had a gold imprint on it. So it's very soft, but that little bit of gold adds a little glitz. And you can see where I inserted these little pieces in here. They just really helped. They were very light fiber, but they were perfect color to match these leaves and to match this little bit of embroidery here that you see around, okay? And I did that all the way around. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there is a mini there between each petal. There's 6 of them. Now, when I put the medallion down, the medallion was already made, so I put it down, and I wanted it not to scream or be the focal point. I wanted it to be part of the flower without being intrusive and taking over the show, you might say. So in order to be able to do that, I used a very light teal colored thread that matches the colorization in the petals, but it doesn't jump out at you. I did my stitches fairly long, but placed them pretty wide apart. Then there was already a stitched V pattern going around the inside. I came back inside that V, which was done in cream color, and put the same light teal thread, just a little bit of colorization in here, but you can see how well the edges of this just some fade into the flower itself. So I accomplished what I wanted to do there. I wanted a distinctive center, but not one that screamed for, first place here. I wanted the flower to be a whole, not just a middle of a flower, or not just a leaf, or not just a petal. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do want to focus on those things, but not on this one. So overall, I'm very, very pleased. And I would tell anyone who's watched this series through, the most hardest part of this whole thing, the hardest part by far, was putting that first petal shape down. Just getting something down to start with. That's the hardest part. From there, once you get something down, then it's easy to layer something on top of it, and then something else, and then something else. And but to get something down first. And if you remember, we just put 6 of those same things down in a circle. Didn't look good at all, but it was the foundation we needed to begin to build. And as we started building and as we layered, then we knew how many leaves we wanted. And we knew, I knew in advance I wanted to use this for a center, but I didn't know how I wanted to stitch it on until I finished the flowers themselves. I didn't know what color I wanted to use. I didn't know how much stitching I wanted, any of those things, until I got the flower petals down. I wasn't sure about the leaves, but I knew my flower petals were so busy that my leaves needed to be seen, but they also didn't need to fight with the colors in the flowers. So I'm real pleased with what I chose for that. Sometimes working by the seat of your pants or intuitively, when you end up, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to love every piece, because you're not. You're going to end up in a place where you just, you really don't like your destination. And while I can say that doesn't happen real often anymore, it did happen a lot in the beginning when I started designing my own fiber art. And but I got better and better at listening to the piece I was working on, listening to what I was working with, having faith in my own intuitive decisions. If my gut told me to do such and such, and yet, structure and guidelines and other people's art and so forth and so on would say do something else, often I'd go do something else. But I've learned to listen to me. I've learned to do me well. I do me well. That doesn't mean that anyone else will like my art, but I do. And that's what's important. And that's what I would really like to get over to any of you who are really trying to be adventurous in your needlework and designing some of your own stuff and doing not just embroidery or cross stitch, but you're trying to design, you're trying to get into some fiber art pieces, and just do you well. Figure out who you are. Practice at doing you. And do it over and over again until you do you very well. You'll end up being a unique artist. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this down the rabbit hole with me. Kind of scary in the beginning, kind of ugly in the beginning, kind of, whoa, what are we doing in the beginning? But I think you would say with me that this is a gorgeous piece of work. I think it's gorgeous. I love it. I'd hang it in a New York second. And so I hope that you now are inspired to go out and jump down your own rabbit hole and create something very unique. All right? And until next time, please stay very scrap happy.